people have greenhouses? But back east, people have lots of greenhouses. Say this is something people just have in their backyard because it snows. Shh. But how does a greenhouse work? Well, basically, you might want to put this diagram. Visible light. Visible light goes in through the greenhouse windows because basically it's just a big glass building. Infrared light bounces off. Glass to infrared is like a mirror. The invisible light, metal is our mirror. All mirrors are metal. You might say, well, it's glass. No, the glass protects the piece of metal that's on the back. Keeps it from getting scratched and things like that. Metal is a reflective surface in visible light. In infrared light, like if we saw an infrared rather than visible light, that all those windows would look like mirrors. It'd all look like mirrors over there. Ultraviolet light just gets absorbed by the glass. Goes in the glass, yes.
How do they create double-sided mirrors?
When we get to chapter 27 in there, we'll talk about that. That's a light thing. So visible light goes in, it gets absorbed by the stuff inside, and it gets re-radiated out as infrared. But again, if the infrared can't get in, the infrared can't get out. So it traps all that energy inside, and the heat builds up. This is how a greenhouse works. And if you have enough sunlight in the winter, you don't even have to turn on any heaters, even where it's snowing and things like that. You know, big greenhouses. I know the National Conservatory, it was nice to go in there on a winter day. It's about 2 blocks from the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on the mall. But, cold winter day, it was real nice to go in there for about a half hour or so, get nice and warm.
Plants like
Well, better than snow.
Yeah.
A lot of times you find like tropical plants but things like that. It's greenhouses, citrus, stuff like that doesn't really like ice. Now, our atmosphere does kind of the same thing. This visible light comes in and hits the earth, is re-radiated as infrared, and it gets caught by greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, things like carbon dioxide and methane and NO2 and there's a bunch of them. All right? Now, is the greenhouse effect bad? No. Is it good? Well, to an extent. Don't want to get too much, because you don't want to become Venus. Runaway greenhouse effect, surface temperatures, melt lead, things like that. But we need the greenhouse effect. If it wasn't for the greenhouse effect, the Earth would be an ice ball. If we lower, in fact, one of the theories about how an ice age occurs, because they don't know what causes ice ages. They don't understand, There's lots of theories, but they don't know what actually causes it. There's a lot of models, and maybe these things work together. One of them is carbon dioxide gets reduced in the atmosphere, causes too much terrestrial radiation to escape. Then more ice starts to form. As more ice starts to form, it reflects light away from the Earth. The term is albedo. As it reflects more light away from the Earth gets colder and more ice forms. But then they get to a point, why does the ice age end? Albedo is a term for how bright something is, how reflected it is. The more reflective you are, in other words, because of ice and snow, it reflects more. As glaciers form, it reflects more of the sun's radiation away. It's white, right? It's not going to absorb and re-radiate as infrared. It's just going to reflect the light away from the Earth.
So the best coffee mugs would be like mirrors?
Could be. That's like a thermos bottle, right? Thermos bottle is like a mirror inside. Thermos bottle is a mirror. If you ever look inside a thermos bottle, right, it's reflective. That's why it's the best thing for that. But, so the Earth that. But global warming, does it occur? Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. In fact, I like the climatologist, this very famous, one of the most famous climatologists in the world. He had a book. The title of his book was Global Warming occurs every 10,000 years. Global warming. It increases it, but right now, the Earth cools, it warms, it cools, warms. It has more to do with this thing out here, the sun. It has nothing to do with us. There's no such thing as anthropomorphic global warming. Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear about the California superstorm?
Oh, yeah, it's Slow News Day.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Slow News Day. But, now, remember, global warming, all this thing, the Earth's climate heats and cools. So let's go back to the Middle Ages. During the Middle Ages, very warm. much warmer on average than it is now. In fact, this is one of the things that led to the Black Death. You know, plague comes from China into Italy through trade. Basically, all the rats that normally would die off in a harsh winter because it gets cold, they die. So a lot of rats die, a few survive. But now it's warm. They get all these rats, more fleas, more plague, wipes out most of Europe. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it basically destroyed the feudal system. This is what caused the feudal system to collapse. You know, if you're the lord in the manor and all your little serfs have died, well, you have to get out there and farm it yourself. Now, so as time goes on, temperatures start to go down, we're repopulating. You get into the 1600s. This is a time in a period that's called the Little Ice Age. The temperatures got so cold, they call that period through the 1600s and the 1700s the Little Ice Age. Massive crop failures, things like that. This was actually an impetus to push to the New World because people were starving. This is what led up to the French Revolution. French Revolution was not so much about politics, it was about people dying of starvation. And they got tired of seeing the nobility eating and they're starving and things like that. You know, the term "let them eat cake" by Marie Antoinette. I mean, she basically was, okay, I don't care if they're starving. They don't care. So you get into the 1800s, the temperatures go up, go down. Now in the 1800s there's an anomaly because Krakatoa blew up. Krakatoa is a volcano in Indonesia. It basically caused worldwide temperatures to decline a lot for 2 years. In fact, in the United States, that the year after it blew up was called the year without a summer, because basically the snow never melted because of all the dust in the atmosphere. Yeah, you get into the 1900s, 1930s. Hottest decade in the 1900s was 1930s. Very warm. You get into World War II, decline. We have a temperature decline. You ever see pictures of the Battle of the Bulge? That didn't look pleasant, did it? One of some of the coldest winters were during that time during World War II, even though Mount Vesuvius was erupting too. We get into the 50s, we get a warming trend, 50s, 60s, but then there's a sharp decline in the 70s. This is when people started going, this is the environmental movement, they're all going, global cooling, oh my God, it's going to freeze, we're going to ice age, we're all going to die. Get into the 80s, solar output increases. See, solar output went down in the 70s, solar output goes up in the 80s, things start warming. Those same people that were screaming global cooling, we're all going to die because we're going to freeze, are now yelling, global warming.
Are our poles actually melting?
No. The North Pole, yes, in the summertime the ice was melting quickly until recently because we got the end of the Pacific decadal cycle, because it's a time when the Pacific Ocean heats and cools. It got to the end because we got to the end of this large solar output. Solar output has now gone down. The decadal rhythm's gone down. The North Pole freezes faster in the winter, even though it melts in the summer. It freezes faster over in the winter than it ever has. Some of the glaciers, like in Greenland, have receded, but they've gotten thicker. They've like doubled in thickness, but they've receded from the coast. Antarctic ice is thickening. If we saw significant portions of the ice caps melting, we would see significant rises in sea level, and sea level has not changed. Everything's fine. Well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I got a symbol for you for Al Gore and global warming. This made him a billionaire. Mary, Al Gore owns a company that sells those little carbon credit things. You know, people so they can pollute more. So, how many of you have wood stoves and you can't use them because someone says you can't burn on certain days? That's what it's about, because last year when they had this big global warming conference, the head of the UN's Global Warming Committee resigned because it came out that basically all the data has been falsified by some of these scientists that were involved. In other words, we wanted a certain outcome, so we falsified the data. Global temperatures have been staying level or going down. It's like last year. I'm sure this guy at NASA got fired for this, but because the models say all the ocean's temperatures should be going up. But this guy came up with the end of his study, 10-year study on ocean temperatures, and basically found that all the ocean temperatures that stay steady are gone down. The model says they're going up. By the way, the global warming models are the same ones that they use to predict weather. The computer models they use are the same ones they use to predict weather. They can't predict weather 3 days in advance, and we're supposed to believe they can tell us what it's going to be like in 50 years. I can't do 3 days in advance, but I'm supposed to believe 50 years. By the way, the last prediction was they said in the year 3000. The last one I heard was in the year 3000 something's going to happen. All right. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, remember, next time, test. Let's get all the chairs up. Get all the books back in order, please. Back in order.